Hello everyone. If you are over 65, your morning routine matters more than you think. In fact, research from long-living populations, including older adults in Japan and residents of Okinawa, shows that simple, consistent morning habits strongly influence longevity, heart health, brain function, and independence. Today, I will show you a simple 3-step morning routine that supports healthy aging, reduces inflammation, stabilizes blood sugar, and protects your heart and brain. This is not a miracle. This is biology. Let's begin. Every morning after the age of 65, something invisible begins to happen inside your body. Before you speak your first word, before you take your first step, your biology has already decided what kind of day you are going to have. Your blood pressure rises faster than it did in your 40s. Your blood sugar becomes more sensitive. Your stress hormone cortisol peaks earlier and sharper. And if you ignore this window, you silently accelerate aging. In long-living populations such as older adults in Okinawa, researchers have observed something extraordinary. Longevity is not an accident. It is patterned. It is rhythmic. It begins in the morning. Studies of centenarians show that consistent early-day habits regulate metabolic pathways that directly influence inflammation, cardiovascular strain, and cellular repair. The first hour after waking is not ordinary time. It is biological prime time. After 65, your circadian rhythm shifts. The body's internal clock becomes lighter, more fragile, more reactive. Scientific research shows that morning blood pressure surge is significantly associated with increased risk of stroke and heart attack in older adults. That surge happens within the first few hours of waking. What you do during that period either amplifies the strain on your arteries or softens it. This is not motivational language. This is vascular physiology. When you wake up and remain inactive, cortisol continues circulating at high levels. Elevated cortisol, when not balanced by movement and nourishment, contributes to muscle breakdown, higher glucose release, and increased abdominal fat storage. In aging bodies, muscle is already declining at a rate of up to 1% per year after 50, and that rate accelerates after 70. If mornings begin with stress, immobility, or skip nutrition, the body receives a signal: conserve, break down, slow metabolism. But when mornings begin with deliberate structure, a completely different cascade begins. Light exposure within 30 minutes of waking has been shown to synchronize the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, your master clock. Proper circadian alignment improves insulin sensitivity, lowers nighttime blood pressure, and enhances sleep quality. Sleep quality, in turn, determines how effectively growth hormone repairs tissue overnight. Longevity is not one big decision, it is a chain reaction. Researchers studying older populations in Japan found that elders who followed consistent morning rituals had lower markers of systemic inflammation, including C-reactive protein. Inflammation is one of the strongest predictors of biological aging. Chronic low-grade inflammation damages blood vessels, stiffens arteries, and increases risk of cognitive decline. Yet inflammation responds powerfully to predictable daily rhythms. There is another factor most people overlook: morning glucose control. After 65, insulin receptors become less responsive. This means that large spikes in blood sugar cause more oxidative stress than they did decades earlier. Oxidative stress damages mitochondria, the energy centers of your cells. Damaged mitochondria accelerate fatigue, muscle weakness, and even neurodegeneration. But controlled morning nutrition stabilizes glucose levels for hours, reducing glycation and protecting cellular DNA. You may think one morning does not matter, but arteries remember, cells remember, your endocrine system remembers. Studies show that irregular daily patterns increase all-cause mortality risk compared to consistent routines. The body thrives on predictability, especially the aging body. In communities famous for longevity, elders rarely rush their mornings. They hydrate, they move gently, they eat intentionally. This is not cultural coincidence. It is metabolic strategy. Gentle morning movement improves endothelial function, the ability of blood vessels to dilate properly. Endothelial dysfunction is one of the earliest steps toward heart disease. Just 10 minutes of light walking can improve nitric oxide availability, helping arteries relax instead of constrict. The brain also depends on your morning decisions. Overnight, your brain clears metabolic waste through the glymphatic system, but that process completes effectively only when circadian rhythms are stable. When mornings are chaotic or inactive, sleep quality degrades over time. Poor sleep increases beta amyloid accumulation, a protein associated with cognitive decline. Your morning routine tonight influences your memory 10 years from now. There is a reason heart attacks occur more frequently in the early morning hours. The combination of rising cortisol, platelet aggregation, and increased blood pressure creates vulnerability. Structured morning habits, hydration, light movement, calm breathing, reduce sympathetic nervous system dominance. They lower the intensity of that surge. They protect fragile vessels that have been working for 6 or 7 decades. Longevity research consistently shows that lifestyle factors account for more variation in lifespan than genetics alone. Your genes may load the gun, but your daily rhythm pulls the trigger, and the morning is when the trigger is most sensitive. When you wake and immediately expose yourself to natural light, you increase serotonin production. Serotonin is not only a mood regulator, it is a precursor to melatonin. Proper melatonin production at night is linked to improved immune regulation and antioxidant defense. This means your morning sunlight affects your immune resilience and cancer protective mechanisms later. Even hydration timing matters. After hours without fluid intake, blood viscosity increases slightly. Thicker blood places greater strain on the cardiovascular system. Rehydrating in the morning improves plasma volume and circulation efficiency. In aging adults, even mild dehydration increases fall risk and cognitive confusion. A simple glass of water can shift circulatory dynamics in minutes. Consistency compounds. A single healthy morning lowers stress load for a day. Repeated for months, it lowers baseline inflammation. Repeated for years, it shifts biological age markers. Telomere research suggests that chronic stress accelerates cellular aging. Structured routines reduce unpredictability, lowering chronic stress hormone exposure. That protection adds up. You cannot control every variable of aging, but you can control the signal you send your body at sunrise. You can tell it repair, you can tell it stabilize, you can tell it strengthen, or you can allow randomness to dictate decline. The people who live into their 90s and beyond often share a quiet discipline. They respect mornings. They understand, intuitively or scientifically, that biology resets each day. They use that reset wisely. If you are over 65, your margin for error narrows. Recovery takes longer, muscle rebuilds slower, blood vessels stiffen easier, but the body still responds. It always responds to consistent signals. Tomorrow morning is not ordinary. It is an opportunity to lower your stroke risk, stabilize your glucose, preserve your muscle, and protect your brain before breakfast is even finished. It is an opportunity to influence whether the next decade feels independent or dependent. Longevity does not begin with advanced medicine. It begins with a decision made quietly, daily, at the edge of your bed. When your feet touch the floor, your biology is listening, and what you do in that first hour may determine how many more mornings you get to see. After the age of 65, there is one organ in your body that predicts how long you will live more accurately than your cholesterol level, more reliably than your blood pressure, and in many studies, even more powerfully than your genetic profile. It is not your heart. It is not your brain. It is your muscle. Muscle is not cosmetic tissue. It is not vanity. It is metabolic power, structural armor, and biochemical protection woven into every movement you make. Beginning around the age of 30, adults lose approximately 3 to 8% of their muscle mass per decade. After 60, that decline accelerates. By the time many people reach 75, they may have lost up to 30% of the muscle they once had. This condition, known as age-related muscle loss, is not just about weakness. It is directly associated with increased risk of falls, fractures, hospitalization, insulin resistance, cognitive decline, and premature death. In clinical research, lower muscle mass consistently correlates with higher all-cause mortality. Muscle is your largest glucose reservoir. When you eat, your muscles absorb glucose from the bloodstream under the influence of insulin, but as muscle mass shrinks, the body becomes less capable of clearing glucose efficiently. Blood sugar stays elevated longer. Elevated blood sugar produces oxidative stress. Oxidative stress damages blood vessels. Damaged blood vessels increase the risk of heart attack and stroke. The chain reaction begins with muscle loss. Studies published in major geriatric journals show that older adults with stronger grip strength, a simple measure of muscle function, live longer than those with weaker grip strength. Grip strength predicts cardiovascular events, hospitalization risk, and even cognitive outcomes. That is how deeply muscle connects to survival. After 65, your body becomes less responsive to protein intake. This phenomenon, called anabolic resistance, means that the same amount of protein you ate at 40 is no longer enough to stimulate muscle repair at 70. Without intentional protein intake, muscle protein synthesis declines, muscle fibers shrink, balance weakens, reaction time slows, the risk of falling rises dramatically. 1 in 4 adults over 65 falls each year. Falls are not random accidents. They are often the consequence of weakened stabilizing muscles, slowed neuromuscular coordination, and decreased lower body strength. Hip fractures in older adults carry a significant 1-year mortality rate. Many individuals never regain their prior independence. Behind these statistics is a silent truth. Stronger muscles could have changed the outcome. But muscle is more than protection against falling. It is a hormone-producing organ. Skeletal muscle releases signaling molecules called myokines during contraction. These myokines reduce systemic inflammation, improve insulin sensitivity, and even communicate with the brain to enhance cognitive resilience. When muscles contract, they release biochemical messages that tell the body to repair, regulate, and resist disease. Physical inactivity accelerates muscle breakdown. In older adults, even 10 days of bed rest can result in substantial muscle loss and reduced strength that may take months to recover. Hospitalization becomes a turning point not because of illness alone, but because of rapid muscle atrophy during immobility. The body adapts quickly to inactivity, and after 65, that adaptation is unforgiving. Morning protein intake has been shown to stimulate muscle protein synthesis more effectively when distributed evenly across meals. Research indicates that older adults benefit from approximately 25 to 30 grams of high-quality protein per meal to maximize muscle repair. Eggs, Greek yogurt, tofu, legumes, and lean fish provide essential amino acids, particularly leucine, which acts as a trigger for muscle-building pathways. Without sufficient leucine, the signal to preserve muscle weakens. Resistance training, even at low intensity, dramatically improves muscle strength and functional capacity in adults over 70 and even over 80. Clinical trials involving nursing home residents in their 80s and 90s have demonstrated significant increases in muscle strength after supervised strength training. Age does not eliminate the capacity to build muscle. It simply demands consistency. Stronger muscles improve mitochondrial density. Mitochondria generate the energy currency that powers every cell. As mitochondrial efficiency declines with age, fatigue increases. But resistance exercise stimulates mitochondrial biogenesis, increasing the number and function of these energy-producing structures. More efficient mitochondria mean more endurance, sharper thinking, and greater independence. Muscle also plays a critical role in bone health. Mechanical stress from muscle contractions stimulates bone remodeling, increasing bone mineral density. Without adequate muscle force, bones weaken. Osteoporosis becomes more likely. Fracture risk rises. Muscles and bones function as a unit. When one deteriorates, the other follows. Inflammation is one of the central drivers of aging. Chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging, contributes to heart disease, diabetes, and neurodegeneration. Regular muscle contraction reduces inflammatory cytokines while increasing anti-inflammatory mediators. This is not theoretical. Blood markers of inflammation decrease measurably in older adults who engage in structured strength training. Cognitive health is also linked to muscle strength. Studies have found found that older adults with higher muscle mass and strength perform better on memory and executive function tests. Physical strength correlates with brain volume in certain regions associated with cognition. Exercise increases brain-derived neurotrophic factor, a protein that supports neuron survival and plasticity. Muscle movement literally feeds the brain. Independence in later life depends less on medication and more on function. Can you stand from a chair without using your hands? Can you climb stairs? Can you carry groceries? These functional markers are powered by muscle. Loss of these abilities often signals a cascade toward assisted living or dependence. The tragedy is that muscle decline is often accepted as inevitable. It is not inevitable. It is influenced, it is responsive, it is modifiable even in advanced age. The human body retains remarkable plasticity. With adequate protein intake, resistant stimulus, and recovery, muscle fibers can hypertrophy at 70, 80, even 90. Every morning you have an opportunity to send your body a message. When you consume sufficient protein early in the day and engage in light resistance movements, chair squats, wall push-ups, controlled step-ups, you activate mTOR pathways responsible for muscle synthesis. You counteract anabolic resistance. You remind your body that strength is still required. Sedentary behavior tells the body that muscle is unnecessary. The body is efficient. It eliminates what it perceives as unused. But when you demand strength, the body responds by preserving it. That preservation extends beyond aesthetics. It influences metabolism, vascular health, balance, immunity, and resilience against stress. Longevity is not defined only by years lived, but by years lived independently. Muscle is the engine of that independence. It stabilizes your joints. It cushions your bones. It clears your glucose. It secretes protective hormones. It fuels your mitochondria. It protects your brain. When you protect your muscles, you protect your future self. The version of you who wants to walk unaided, travel freely, and rise from bed without fear. The decline of muscle may be silent at first, but so is its preservation. Each intentional movement, each gram of protein, each repetition sends a biochemical signal: remain strong. After 65, muscle is not optional tissue. It is survival tissue. It is your anti-aging organ hidden in plain sight. And every day you choose to nourish and challenge it, you are not simply exercising, you are negotiating with time itself. There is a silent fire that burns inside the human body after the age of 65, and most people never feel the flames until the damage is done. It does not cause immediate pain. It does not announce itself loudly, but it quietly erodes arteries, stiffens joints, clouds memory, and weakens immunity. This fire is chronic inflammation, and it is one of the most powerful drivers of aging ever identified in modern medicine. Scientists call it inflammaging. Unlike acute inflammation, which helps you heal from injury or infection, chronic low-grade inflammation lingers for years. Blood tests often reveal slightly elevated markers such as C-reactive protein and interleukin-6 in older adults. These markers are not harmless numbers. They are predictive signals. Higher levels are associated with increased risk of heart disease, stroke, type 2 diabetes, Alzheimer's disease, and even certain cancers. Inflammation damages the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. When the endothelium is injured, arteries lose their ability to relax properly. Plaque begins to accumulate more easily. Blood flow becomes restricted. This is how a quiet inflammatory process transforms into a heart attack years later. In fact, cardiovascular disease remains one of the leading causes of death worldwide, and chronic inflammation is a central mechanism behind it. The brain is not immune. Persistent inflammation disrupts communication between neurons. It accelerates oxidative stress. Research has linked elevated inflammatory markers to faster cognitive decline in older adults. Memory loss is not only a neurological story, it is also an inflammatory story. When inflammatory molecules cross the blood-brain barrier, they alter the environment in which your neurons must survive. What makes this more urgent after 65 is that the aging immune system becomes dysregulated. It is less efficient at fighting infections, yet paradoxically more prone to producing chronic inflammatory signals. This imbalance increases vulnerability. A minor infection can escalate more quickly. Recovery takes longer. tissue repair slows. But here is the extraordinary truth. Inflammation is not fixed. It responds dramatically to daily dietary patterns. What you place on your plate each morning can either fuel the fire or begin to extinguish it. In regions known for exceptional longevity, such as parts of Japan, traditional diets are rich in anti-inflammatory foods. Green tea, fermented soy products, sea vegetables, and deeply colored plants appear consistently in dietary patterns of older adults who remain active into their 90s. Researchers studying dietary habits in Okinawa observed lower rates of cardiovascular disease and longer life expectancy compared to many Western populations. While genetics play a role, dietary inflammation load is a powerful differentiator. Extra virgin olive oil contains polyphenols that reduce oxidative stress and improve endothelial function. Clinical trials have shown that diets enriched with olive oil reduce inflammatory markers and lower cardiovascular risk. These compounds protect low-density lipoprotein particles from oxidation, a critical step in plaque formation. 1 tablespoon a day may appear small, but biologically, it sends protective signals at the cellular level. Berries, particularly blueberries and strawberries, contain anthocyanins, potent antioxidants that neutralize free radicals. Free radicals damage DNA, proteins, and lipids. Accumulated oxidative damage accelerates aging. Regular berry consumption has been associated with slower cognitive decline in large observational studies. The pigments that give berries their deep color are not decorative, they are biochemical shields. Green tea provides catechins such as epigallocatechin gallate, which modulate inflammatory pathways and improve metabolic health. Studies have shown that habitual green tea consumption correlates with reduced risk of cardiovascular mortality. These catechins influence gene expression related to oxidative defense. A warm cup in the morning is not simply a ritual, it is molecular protection. Fermented foods introduce beneficial bacteria that diversify the gut microbiome. The gut is not just a digestive organ, it is an immune organ. Approximately 70% of immune activity is linked to the gut. When gut bacteria are balanced, inflammatory responses are more controlled. When the microbiome is disrupted, inflammatory signals increase. Aging often reduces microbial diversity, but diet can partially restore it. Turmeric, especially when combined with black pepper to enhance absorption, contains curcumin, a compound studied extensively for its anti-inflammatory properties. Curcumin influences nuclear factor kappa B, a key regulator of inflammatory gene expression. While it is not a pharmaceutical drug, its biochemical impact is significant enough to be studied in clinical settings. Refined sugars and ultra-processed foods, on the other hand, amplify inflammation. Rapid glucose spikes increase production of advanced glycation end products, which damage tissues and promote oxidative stress. These compounds accumulate in blood vessels and connective tissue, contributing to stiffness and dysfunction. Diets high in processed carbohydrates are consistently linked to elevated inflammatory markers. Chronic inflammation also accelerates muscle loss. Inflammatory cytokines interfere with muscle protein synthesis and increase breakdown. This creates a vicious cycle. Less muscle leads to poorer glucose control, which leads to more inflammation. Breaking this cycle often begins with dietary change. The remarkable aspect of dietary intervention is its cumulative effect. A single anti-inflammatory meal does not erase years of damage, but consistent daily choices gradually shift baseline inflammatory tone. Blood markers can measurably improve within weeks. Endothelial function can recover. Insulin sensitivity can increase. Small shifts compound over time. Inflammation influences mood as well. Elevated inflammatory markers are associated with higher rates of depression in older adults. When inflammatory signals decrease, mood often improves. The connection between gut health, inflammation, and neurotransmitter balance is an expanding field of research. What you eat influences how you feel, not only physically but emotionally. There is no single superfood that guarantees longevity. The power lies in patterns. A morning that includes anti-inflammatory elements, olive oil, berries, green tea, fermented foods, creates a daily protective layer. It reduces the intensity of the silent fire. It strengthens cellular defenses. It slows cumulative damage. After 65, the body becomes less forgiving of inflammatory insults. Recovery from illness takes longer. Joint pain intensifies more quickly. Fatigue lingers. But the same body retains its capacity to respond positively when given protective nutrients. Every morning is an opportunity to choose which direction your biology moves, toward greater oxidative stress or toward greater resilience, toward arterial stiffness or vascular flexibility, toward cognitive decline or neural protection. Inflammation is silent, but so is prevention. The absence of symptoms does not mean absence of damage, and the presence of age does not mean absence of hope. The fire of chronic inflammation does not have to define your later years. With deliberate nutritional strategy, supported by scientific evidence and observed in some of the longest living communities on Earth, you can influence the internal environment in which your cells age. You cannot eliminate inflammation entirely, nor should you want to, but you can calm it. You can regulate it. You can prevent it from becoming destructive. The fork you lift tomorrow morning may seem insignificant, yet at the cellular level, it is a message. It tells your immune system whether to escalate or to stabilize. It tells your arteries whether to constrict or to relax. It tells your brain whether to endure or to erode. And when repeated day after day, that message shapes the story of how you age.